Hello. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about the different roles and how they work that people could possibly wish to partake in. So running a website like this is a fairly complex thing in its totality. In other words, if you put all the pieces together, there's a lot of work which goes into running the site. If, however, that large overall collection of work is subdivided into subsections, with a different individual having responsibility for each subsection, then what would be an almost impossible task for one person to do, when it's split between maybe 10 or 15 people, it becomes just fairly minor tasks on an individual basis. So what I just wanted to try and show you was the nature of how the system is subdivided into subsections that are encapsulated and accessible on an individual basis. So I suppose the first thing to show you is the site in its totality, which you may have seen from another video. So if we just go to the administration side of things, if we log in as the webmaster, now the webmaster is basically the super user and has override privileges on everything to do with the website basically. So obviously you need to keep this particular account very secure, because any breach of the webmaster account and the whole site will be offline. So we just log in as the webmaster, and then we can see this is the totality of the back end of the system. So we have this great big list of components. So if you remember, under the components menu you can see 20, possibly 30 different components that make up the functionality of the website. So each one of these subsections is individually accessible to the webmaster. And you can also see there's various other menus here, like user administration, the menuing subsystem, content, installation of extensions, and so on. So that's the view that the webmaster has. You can also see how many hits a particular web page has had, and so on, and like that. So that's the webmaster view. Now each of these, what you can do is you can use a permission system to only grant access to a particular user to a subset of these extensions. So you might grant a user only access to this extension, or only access to this one, and so on. So let me just show you what that looks like. So for example, if we log in as the ads manager, so they deal with the classified ads that are part of the website. We don't have commercial ads, it's just for people to put anything they don't need anymore, and so on. Then you can see we have a much simpler view of the back end now that we've logged in as the ads manager. So all the ads manager can see is the ads manager subsystem, and that's all that he's then responsible for. So he can go to the configuration of the ads manager system, and he can control that, and so on. So what type of layout, and so on and so forth. So that's the ads manager subsystem then basically. So you can see an individual, rather than having to learn the whole of the back end of the site to be able to run it, can just learn a particular subsystem, which is a much smaller task. So for each of these components you usually find documentation online which explains how to use it. So that's the kind of extent of a role that somebody might want to take on the administration side of the website, and not just the front end and user type of the website. So let's just have a look at another one. So if we look at the awards manager, so they're responsible for handing out awards to community members that have done good deeds or whatever, and you can see the awards manager only has access to the awards subsystem, so they can figure out from the documentation how to use all of this, and that is then their role on the community. Another one would be, so if you can imagine a website has a photographic gallery, so the gallery manager would be responsible for the imaging subsystem. So you can see all the images here, categories of images, so they can create a category and maintain the images and so on, or if you want to see the images themselves, then they're responsible for maintaining the image gallery basically, and curating the images as well, because it's a community gallery and the idea is that the gallery manager has the say on what images get into the community gallery. You can import images from Facebook, moderate comments on them. There's some theming stuff, I'm not sure what that does, obviously theming, but I'm not sure how you use it. And then you could probably find somewhere here a link to the documentation. There you go, so it explains how to use all of this imaging subsystem. So you can see then these subsystems, when added together, is how small contributions make up to a big effect. So if we log back in as the webmaster, you can see that from the webmaster's view, so that's the adverts manager stuff that we looked at, that's the awards manager stuff, that's the gallery, image gallery. So you can see each of these subsystems needs a individual volunteer that wants to work on running them. Not all of them, but many of them. So donations manager, for example, would deal with this component, answering questions on donations and maybe setting up campaigns to raise money and things. And so that's the basic. I hope that's fairly self-explanatory. By dividing a large body of work into smaller subsections with more people, you can create quite a big effect, rather than having like one guy completely stressed out trying to run the whole thing. That's the principle behind it, and the next thing is to try and find people that want to play a role in the community, I suppose. Okay then, thanks for listening.